Okay, so I feel like mechanical keyboards have been going through the cycle of trends where one company does something, everybody else sees it, and then goes, wow, that's dope, let's do that too. And then all of a sudden, everybody is doing it. A couple of years ago, it was the knob, then it was gasket mounts, and now the latest trend seems to be low profile mechanical keyboards, which I am personally pretty excited about because one of the things that has kind of irked me ever since getting into mechanical keyboards is whenever someone who isn't really into keyboards sees one of these, they go, oh wow, so retro, so old school, which just really isn't the vibe I'm trying to go for right now. But up until now, low profile mechanical keyboards have honestly just kind of sucked. Like they were both not low profile enough to really be considered a low profile keyboard, and they just weren't really high quality enough to be a good mechanical keyboard. So there just weren't really any good premium options for people who wanted them. But after trying this out, the Lofree Edge, for a couple of days, I feel like this really fills that gap in the market because at just 5.4 millimeters thin, this is without a doubt the thinnest mechanical keyboard I have ever seen, and it packs in most of the features that you would expect to see on very premium boards, as well as having some very impressive material choice and build quality. Like on the deck here, we have some woven carbon fiber that you just don't typically see too often in keyboards, not because it's not a high quality material, but because normally people associate weight with quality. Like when you pick up an expensive board, you just kind of expect it to have some heft to it. But this one is deceptively light in the sense that even though this is crazy thin and lightweight, there is no doubt in my mind that it is very well built. And this was actually one of the things that I was a little bit worried about when I first saw it, because there's just a lot of fake carbon fiber stuff out there to the point that I almost associate carbon fiber with cheap now. But I think when you get the real thing like you do with this, it's still just a really cool look. And one pretty cool part of this was that they took the part that they cut out of the deck to make the keyboard, like all this space where the keys go right here, they cut that out and turned it into a keyboard stand, which is pretty cool because otherwise they probably would have just thrown it away and it would have gone to a landfill. But it's nice that you get that functionality. So once you kind of put it together, you just put your keyboard up like that, and now you can display it when you're not using it. As far as the rest of the keyboard, we have this milled magnesium alloy shell for the whole bottom, which if you guys didn't know is actually the same material that they use to make high-end camera bodies, because it has a really great strength to weight ratio. And weight reduction was definitely one of their focuses with this one, because the whole board weighs just over 1 pound, which is pretty crazy. Like we all know that carbon fiber is super light, but they even drilled out all these holes on the back to reduce the weight even further. And speaking of these holes, they also have Lofree printed out very subtly behind here, and it was so subtle that I almost thought I was like hallucinating when I first saw it. But if you look closely, like it's definitely there. I'm not sure if it's going to come out on camera, but just looking at it under here, and I'm kind of checking the monitor, I think you kind of can see it, but I think it's just a pretty cool, very subtle touch with very minimal branding. The keycaps they're using are made of PBT, which is really nice because they tend to just be a lot more resistant to finger oils than ABS. And for a premium board like this, you definitely want some longevity out of them. They also got this pretty sleek looking font on here that really reminds me of Porsche designs, and I think it just fits the whole vibe of the board perfectly. The only thing I will say about these though is that the gray lettering on here is a little bit hard to read in dim lighting. Like it just blends into the black background a little bit too much, and at night when it's darker I just have a little bit trouble telling like what's what. I do understand why they did it though, because it probably would look a little bit too busy from a design perspective if they were to use white lettering. Under the keycaps we've got some brand new custom switches that were made by Kale for Lofree that I think are the lowest profile switches on the market at just 9.8 millimeters thin. And just for reference, normal low profile switches are about 12 millimeters millimeters thick, making these about 18% thinner than the last version. They also got this fake carbon fiber weave looking texture on top of each switch, which is pretty cool because it fits really well with the theme of the rest of the board. But the real question is, what is it like to type on this? And I gotta say that it definitely takes some getting used to. It's kind of like in between a full-size mechanical keyboard and a chiclet style board from a laptop. And there's just kind of a weird sensation where when you first press down on the key, it feels like it's a mechanical switch with how smooth it is, but then it just bottoms out so fast and my fingers just aren't really prepared for it. Like my fingers are expecting there to be more travel, but then it just hits like a pretty hard wall. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I feel like it's one of those things that you just really need to try it out to know what I'm talking about. One of the things that I think would really help out with that sensation though would just to be to lessen the actuation force on these switches. I'm not sure how many grams it is, but it definitely feels like it's on the heavy side for what it's trying to deliver, and it makes me want to press harder than I need to, which then in turn makes the bottoming out a little bit harsher as well. But I think that's pretty much just how low profile keyboards are for the most part, and after using this for a few days I mostly got used to it. And I will say that it's bar none the best typing feeling low profile keyboard I've ever used. And one major contributing factor to that is that this has a gasket mount PCB, which I was honestly just really surprised to see because, well, this thing is so thin and I just don't know how they managed to fit it in, but it's there and it does work. But as expected, the travel distance of the gasket is very minimal. Like pressing down on it, as pretty much as hard as I feel comfortable pressing, it hardly moves, but there definitely is some flex in there and it does have like a little bit of bounce. But even just that little bit of travel and bounce, I feel like makes a pretty big difference on this board because it's so thin. Like I said earlier, when I'm typing on this, I'm typically like bottoming out pretty hard and pretty often on it, and the gasket mount just providing that little bit of cushion, little bit of bounce takes a little bit of the edge off that. But I'm sure you guys are dying to hear how this guy sounds for yourself, so let's do a little sound test. Okay, so yeah, that was how it sounds, and for me, I was pleasantly surprised with how nice it is. They loaded this thing up with foam, and I don't detect any unpleasant pinging or rattling from the board, which is always a good sign. As far as connectivity goes, we got Bluetooth and wired via USB-C. Both seem to work pretty well and I got no complaints here. It also has a 2000 milliamp hour battery, and so far I just haven't really had it long enough to run into any battery issues, but I will say in the couple of days that I've had it, I haven't needed to charge it. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with this board, and if you're looking for a premium low profile board, this is definitely one you should be taking a look at. They're opening up the Kickstarter today, so you can snag an early bird deal if you get in now. And Lofree has been making boards for quite a while now, so you don't really need to worry about them not delivering, which is pretty nice to have that peace of mind. I probably should have said this in the beginning, but Lofree did send this board to me free of charge, but they did not pay me to say any of this, and I just genuinely think it's a pretty dope board. And I can totally see this being like the perfect board for those like coffee shop warriors where they have the whole setup in the shop, because this is so lightweight, so thin. You could just chuck this in your bag next to your laptop and yeah, like you got a setup right there. But yeah, Lofree Edge, check it out. That's it for this one though. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.